I really wanted to talk about how you're not on social media,
Oh,
but I didn't know if you were comfortable
no,
talking about
look,
that.
I don't mind
Okay.
talking about it. I mean, you're gonna edit. I don't, you know what? I don't like social media. I don't know it. I'm not young. I do not appreciate, like, I don't, you know what it is? I don't feel like I'm smart enough to say anything that is worthy of people, the world knowing. I also don't love the idea of trolls and being
Oh,
sort
okay,
of
that's fair.
attacked like that. Like, I don't want to put myself out there like that. I chose a career behind the camera. I am not, otherwise I would have been an actor. I am very dramatic. I am a drama queen. My world, anybody who knows me, all of my friends would know that I'm the drama. But I cannot imagine, like, I look at sort of influencers and I mean, I don't know how they do that. I don't know how to put myself out there like that and sort of be open to, like, I don't want to be open to scrutiny like that. Like, I already feel like, yeah, and and if I did that, I want to be smart, and I want to be sassy, and I want to be, witty, and I don't feel I'm any of those things. Yeah, so I just, unfortunately for me, I have personal social media accounts, and I will follow. I do realize and appreciate that there are times when you need to reach out to an actor, and that's the only way you can reach out to them is by social media. So I can appreciate that that's a thing. But man, I can't imagine. Like, the few people that I do follow, like, I love, like, Andy Cohen. And man, he's always posting the troll comments. And I'm like, people say that. I'm like, people say that about you. People say that about his babies. I'm like, the babies, there's no line.
Yeah.
There's no boundaries in that. I'm like, and I don't think I'm strong enough to deal with what happens.
There's so much comedy in that, though, because I share randomness because that's what you're supposed to do. And then you read the comments and you go, oh my God, this is so funny. Because it's someone that's sitting at home, most likely in their underwear, just hating life and going, I'm going to attack someone else. And I just think there's so much comedy in that. But that's just me.
But I love that for you, that you either, you're immune to that, or that you've now learned to not take that personally.
But how can you respect, like, if I don't know someone, how can I respect their opinion and take it personally? That's where I'm struggling. And I know, because some comments go, wow, that was bad. But it's like I only take in people that I value their opinion, or I respect them as people. Or at least that's what I'm trying to do. I don't know. We'll see if it works in a couple months. If I'm, in a ball crying, it didn't work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like for me, if I have to, again, putting Millie Tom casting out there, it would probably, I'd just post notices. I would just post I would post if I needed. But I also don't know that I would have such a big outreach. Like, I look at what Jules Casting has done.
Oh yeah.
In terms of, she's built an incredible empire. I mean,
yeah,
her business is this database. And I'm like, that's incredible that people, but also she's earned that. Like, she's
a hard, yeah.
And she is incredible that way. So in a way, whenever I do have to do a hustle like that, I will beg. I beg somebody with a better database, a larger database, to do that. Because again, it's not my forte, and it's not something that.
But I didn't even know this was a thing. I thought that was so interesting because Jules was talking at her workshop, saying she has this huge database. She has a much music background, and she just started building a database, and that casting directors go to her for casting. I thought,
absolutely.
I didn't know that a casting director goes to a casting director.
Oh my gosh! But part of what Jules does is unlike anything that the sort of the film and television, you know what I mean? Like, it's fascinating too, because when I had spoken to her about sort of if we could collaborate on a project together, and it was fascinating because I was worried because I didn't want, like, I wanted her to understand that I would be happy to share a credit with her. Like, it wasn't me taking, I don't want to step on your toes, because what she does is so extraordinary, and it's something that not all of us would want to do, or not all of us can do, in terms of being able to turn over stones and search and dig. And so, again, I want her to understand that I respect what she does immensely, and I have no problem sharing that with her. And then what was fascinating was in the conversation we were having, she was like, hey, she goes, I just want to take it to this point, and then after that, you take the rest of it. And I'm like, oh, it was like a passing of a baton. It was like a relay race. And I'm like, oh my God, we were so in sync in terms of that, because it was like collaboration. It wasn't me, taking something from you and you taking something from me. It was us going, we milk your talents first, and then we can take it to another level. And I love that. Like, I love that about her. And what I love too is like, she doesn't have ego about it, and she knows she's very good at what she does and incredible. Like, I think maybe there are only two other casting directors in the city that can do, maybe 3, that are so precise at that. Mm-hmm. Again, it's real people casting, but also her appreciating how to storytell and why performance is important, right? You can't just pluck somebody off a street and go, okay, now I need you to click the chicken.
I mean, you could, but it would be very interesting chicken.
Well, again, you're going to get something very different, and it really depends on how much you need. So, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not on LinkedIn. I'm not on any of that stuff. Really? I just was like, I just felt so...
I'm not. I honestly, the business person in me dies so hard. Like, no one's going to know. Can you imagine getting a casting director email, but you don't know it's Millie, like Millie's legit because you can't find her on socials?
IMDb!
But people don't know about IMDb. I don't know why. This is a whole other side conversation. I know it's not everyone, and it frustrates me. IMDb.
That's what I was gonna say when Millie was talking, but I didn't want to interrupt. So when she said like the only time I would go on social media is to find an actor, and that's the only way that I could find them. Okay, I'm gonna preface this by saying I have a marketing background. I'm a website builder, so I'm very biased. I think if actors aren't on IMDb, which could potentially be cheaper than having a website, you either have to have one or the other.
It is. Like, look, I always laugh, and I did a sketch about it. It was funny in my head. It didn't do well. It doesn't matter. But, like, the whole creepiness of following caster directors on social media. I understand you'll see their casting calls, but also just liking posts, it makes me cringy on the inside, because it's not like you're ever going to, oh, my God, this person liked my post. Now I'm going to audition them. It doesn't work that way. It's literally just to target people that they can't get into their rooms for some reason. At least that's what I think. When I see an absurd casting call and I go, oh, you're reaching out to the socials. Okay, I get it. But the general population, more often than not, I don't know. I don't know if you feel like you would rather go through an agent than get a message from Instagram.
Okay, here's something that I will say. On that same project, I did a lot of digging, because I was looking for a very specific demographic, and language was an important part of it. And I was using the actor diversity website, and it had some options, but it doesn't have the full membership. It's an opt-in kind of thing, so not everyone's on there. So I actually did like a lot of Googling in terms of like Jamaican actor Toronto, those kinds of searches, to find people, and I would find their name, and like it would pop up, their Instagram bio would have that they're an actor and that they're Jamaican, but then I would go to LinkedIn and be like, not LinkedIn, IMDb, and be like, are they there? And then try to get their information that way. But so it's useful, but again, a lot of actors don't even put in their bio like what their heritage is or anything.
Oh yeah, so I know. Like, I don't know, Jewish. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that is a tricky thing. I mean, I was having a conversation with another casting director, and we were talking about, we kind of wished actors, if you identified a certain way and you were open to identifying that way, you would just put it on your resume. Because sometimes it saves so much time. Because again, that's the one thing about it in audition rooms. I'm not allowed to ask you, human rights questions. I'm not allowed, if you're 18 and over, I'm not allowed to ask you your age. I'm not allowed to ask you your sexual orientation. I'm not allowed to ask you your background, what your background is, what your your diversity, your heritage, your community. And yet, at the end of the day, I kind of need that. Because if I want to tell these stories authentically, I need to know. But I'm not allowed to ask. I was working on a project for one of the streamers. one of the large streaming services. And
I thought you meant like a physical streamer.
Yeah, one of the streaming services.
Part of the streamer.
We're talking about, I had a breakdown, and the breakdown I was looking for specific, an Indigenous LGBTQ male. Okay, and we put it on the break. So, this streaming service is a corporation. They have their own inclusivity clause that they call it, that legal has generated, that must go on every single breakdown. And it's, we are not, we are open to seeing all, great, except I'm looking for Indigenous male LGBTQ performer. And again, we had to word it accordingly, like legal had to go through the breakdown, and I was worried that there would be performers that would just, or agents and performers that would submit themselves that were not authentic to what the ask was. Because again, that's the one thing about the inclusivity clause, is that anyone can audition for this. Even if you're non-binary, you could really audition for this. You could submit. And I technically wasn't supposed to exclude, but again, I wanted to tell the story authentically. Yeah. So it comes to, we're now in our short list, we're in our selects, and we're going to do callbacks. And at one point I say to the streaming service casting executive, I say, should we not be concerned if they're not LGBTQ? She said, nope, we're not allowed to ask. We are not allowed to ask. And I said, okay, because I went to his social media and I see this. She goes, you don't know that he doesn't have something that he's not putting out in his brand. You have no idea.
Yeah,
she said
that's true.
He could very well be LGBTQ and just not claim it. Therefore, we are not asking. And we're not allowed to ask. We cannot. And I said, okay. I said, my worry is that there is a backlash in the LGBTQ community towards people that appear hetero playing these roles. And she said, you have no idea what's happening in his business, so we cannot do anything. And I said, we're just going to leave it open. She goes, at the end of the day, sometimes these performers, they take this. They take this on, and they do. And she goes, again, you have no idea what he's doing with his son, with on his off hours.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting sort of because again, I really just wanted to tell the story authentically, and I wanted to be, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't opening the performer up to scrutiny.
Right. But isn't it their choice if they've submitted for it? I'm assuming they've spoken to their agent. It's their choice to.
Well, and on the sides,
audition for it.
On the sides, I had written, I had spoken to an advocate, an LGBTQ advocate, and I'd said, I said, look, I'm tied legally by certain things I can say to a performer. But I said, what can I do to help? He goes, so we basically, on the sides, we wrote, we would like this character's story to be told authentically, both in orientation and in identity, in all, And so that's kind of how we did it. And again, it was really up to the performer whether or not they would choose, to take that on. And I think it's also interesting too, because in the Indigenous community right now, sometimes it's not just about being Indigenous. It's about the specific community.
Yeah.
So now what's interesting is now, if I can, on a breakdown, I'll be like, well, what community are we asking them to be? So that we can at least put it on a breakdown, we can disclose it ahead of time. And then really it's up to the performer to either accept or not accept that audition if they're not, if they are Cree, but we're asking them to be Anishinaabe. that type of thing.
Right.
So again, we want to be sensitive to that, especially if it does make it, in terms of the storytelling.
Right.
Yeah.
I have words.
Yes, please.
So
I have words.
no, because I have very strong opinions about that, and this goes back to the specificity thing that we were talking about earlier, right? A corporation trying to protect themselves and in a way overcorrecting, because saying that you're inclusive but taking away the nuance and specificity of a story, to me, is backwards. As you get what I'm saying? That's totally backwards, in my opinion. And specificity isn't being insensitive. I think that's a perception that people who are of the prevalent race like to, and I'm talking about race specifically now, not the LGBTQ issue, because we don't know who's out or who's not out, but especially when it comes to cultural identity, I'm not even going to just say race, cultural identity, you do a disservice to everyone when you are saying you're being inclusive, right? You're giving the casting director, first of all, let's just talk about like wasting people's time first. Let's talk about the actual mechanics of this. You're wasting a casting director's time because now Millie will have to go through and watch 20,000 tapes, exaggerating for emphasis, 20,000 tapes to find the 10 people that might match the demographic or community that she's looking for. You're wasting actors' time because if an actor is outside of that demographic and you just don't want to be specific for some legal reason and calling it inclusivity, you're wasting a lot of actors' time by not being specific because you know that's not what you're looking for. So you're going to have people coming in. Actors spend a lot of time taping. So you're going to have people preparing for this audition when you know you do not want them. So you're going to say it's open ethnicity, but you know you want a specific ethnicity. That to me is just disrespectful and also bad business because you're wasting money, right? So that's that. That's just like wasting time all around for the people who are actually doing the work, which are the actors and the casting directors. And that's talking to a corporation, right? And then the other part of it is, if you aren't specific, you are not letting people know that there are opportunities for them out there. It's the same thing that I was saying earlier when I was using that Kim's Convenience example, that like maybe seeing yourself on screen, it's the same thing. Seeing your ethnicity on the breakdown allows you, it signals to you psychologically that, okay, they're looking for me. Let me maybe go update my resume. You get what I'm saying? Because some people feel like they don't want to put their ethnicity on their resume because then they're only going to be sent out for those roles.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? This is a conversation that is happening in other circles right now. So it's a real problem that other actors are bringing up to organizations, right? So there's that. And then if you put who you want and you're not getting who you want and you do have to go wider, that's fine. But at least being specific signals to people, should I invest my time into this role, into going for this role or not? And if people outside, like if you're outside of that ethnicity, because I've seen a couple, like even in the things that I've done independently, where it's like, I clearly said I'm looking for a specific country and other people submit, and I don't fault an actor for submitting if they're close but not exactly the country or the language that I'm looking for. I don't fault them because I understand you're hustling, you have to do, but I think it's, Millie might disagree with me, I don't know, but like, I think specificity is better for everyone all around. And another thing that I came up against when I was casting independently is that agents don't know. They don't know where their actors fall. They don't think to ask them to update their information. So it's not just on the actor. Your agent should be like, okay, hey, especially when it comes to skills, if you have a skill, why is it not on your resume, right? if you're from a certain community, it takes nothing away from you. Because sometimes I don't always look at a resume. I might look at IMDb first. And then, you know what I mean? I look at IMDb, look at their tape, look at, you know, and then go to the resume to see what's there. But like, at least if I ask an agent, I've asked agents specifically, like, hey, do you know if this person is of this culture? I don't know. I have to go and ask them. That's something that agents should know.
I have thoughts on that, but that's this is not my talk, so I'm gonna save my opinion for offline. But everything you're saying is true, and I think it's important for people to. I don't think there's a right or wrong opinion per se, but there's so many valid points that you both raised, and I feel like when I have these kind of serious chats, I get frustrated because I go, cool, we're talking about it, but how do we make a change in this industry that is like taking a little step, but then sometimes by taking that step, they're kind of going in reverse. I don't know.
Yeah, because here's what I've learned. A lot of people don't understand what inclusivity actually means. It doesn't mean that now we're only going to hire Black people or now we're only going to hire Asian people. That's not inclusivity. Inclusivity means we're open to seeing different things, but that doesn't mean that if the story doesn't call for that we're just going to say, oh, everybody can come, when you know that that's not what you're going to choose in the end. That is actually, that's not inclusivity.
Yeah. Though that there are some performers that aren't going to want to be open about their identity.
For sure.
I mean, and we're not even talking, like, not necessarily just sexual orientation, because some performers just don't even know, right? Like, you're just fluid. And you don't, that, you know, your business, your personal life is different than the brand that you're putting out there. So I can appreciate what that is. But I can also, you know, my thing too is that ultimately casting, I want, you know, for me, it's always been important to tell stories authentically. And if I can find the authentic, if I can be as authentic as possible with the casting, then then it's great. But there are times where sometimes it's not in the talent pool, or that the options are limited in the talent pool, or that I don't even know how to tap the options in that talent pool because it's just never been asked of me, you know? I remember one of my most recent asks has been female Black can speak Italian and Russian.
Oh.
And you're like fluently, like be able to do, you're just like, wow, I have never been asked to look for something like that. So I go, okay, let's see if it even exists in the pool. And, you know, how far wide can I search? Like, where am I casting the net? Is it just Toronto? Is it, you know, Ontario? Can I go nationwide?
Right.
What are our resources in terms of being able to do this?
And this is where I think social media really helps.
Sorry?
I was just saying, this is where I think social media really helps, because a lot of times, as much as every social media has its like annoying points in terms of using, a lot of times like people want to like share things widely, so you get that amplification of the message and you might find that gem there. So when it comes to like those, as much as it's something that neither of us love to do or love to utilize, I think that's where a casting director who has a strong social media presence would be able, or not even just a presence, you don't have to have the presence, but know how to use social media, because it's a tool, right? So it's not necessarily just like you're there and everyone knows that you're there and you have like 10 million followers. You don't necessarily need to have 10K followers to be able to utilize social media, because it's a good search engine sometimes too. So you can use it, because I use like Twitter and TikTok as search engines as well. So I think utilizing those things in that way without having to go outside of your comfort zone in terms of how you post. You don't have to post every day or post all your calls to be able to use social media. I think that's one way where finding someone so specific, because that's so specific, like Black, Russian,
it's very specific.
Italian.
Did you find someone?
We found a really great actor.
Oh,
who
okay,
has really good she has a really great ear for accents.
Oh, great.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
Get creative with that one.
Mm-hmm.